From the southeastern corner of western North Carolina, this is Polk Lore. I'm your host, James Hernishan, and it's time once again to talk about our schools. This podcast was created in large part as a response to the 3-minute time limit given public speakers at Polk County Board of Education meetings. Now, there's a good reason for the limit. We wouldn't need one if some people didn't abuse the privilege. But only those who speak publicly for a living can distill what they came to say on a complex issue down to just 3 minutes. Podcasts can go as long as you want. A lot probably go on a lot longer than they should. But I try to keep Polk Lore conversations to between 25 and 50 minutes. This episode is on the short end of that range. I talk with Cindy Allen, who in all likelihood will be the only politically unaffiliated candidate for school board on the ballot this November. The Democrats are putting up just 3 candidates for the 3 open seats, 2 of which they now hold, and the Republicans have decided to challenge only one of them, the Saluda slot now held by Democrat Rob Parsons. Board Vice Chair Rick Koval looks like he will have no opposition at all. So, no school board primaries this year. Why do I devote so much attention to education? Because it's one of the few things that just about everyone in the county, no matter their political persuasion, agrees is a source of pride. Polk Schools isn't a perfect institution, of course. In my opinion, the board mishandled how they responded to the sudden series of challenges to award-winning books that address what should be universally embraced values of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And they made a difficult situation much worse than it should have been by rejecting the scientific consensus to require masks during spikes in the COVID-19 pandemic. You might remember they had to shut everything down just a couple of weeks into the new school year in 2021 because of that decision. Oops. But overall, our little school systems, teachers, staff, and board warrant the widespread support they get from the public, from our county commission, and from the folks who rate schools. We're consistently among the top 2 or 3 districts in the state when it comes to academic performance. There's a reason why most everyone objects to the recent move by the state legislature to shove the square peg of partisan elections into the round hole of Polk Schools. As I asked State Representative Jake Johnson a few weeks ago on this podcast, why fix something that ain't broke? I think that was a fair question because hardly anyone who has taken the time to examine the status quo seems to think that it needs fixing, at least not enough to upset the apple cart. Just look at the low interest in replacing the incumbents on the board. Cindy Allen has been on that board since she was appointed to fill the whiteout seat in 2001. And as you'll find out, she had no trouble finding 660-odd signatures to get herself on the November ballot, despite the pressure to run within the party system. We talked about that decision, her overall vision for the schools, and what to do about smartphones in the classroom at the Feagan Law offices in Columbus, where she works as a paralegal, on Groundhog Day. Cindy Allen, welcome to Polk Lore.
Well, thank you for inviting me to be here.
All right, let's just start off with the kind of tricky question. We'll get this out of the way. Why have you decided to run as an unaffiliated? We've just had the state tell us that they want a partisan school board, and whether that's a good idea or not, it's definitely easier to get on the ballot as a member of the party, unless you have enemies in the party. So why choose to run as an unaffiliated rather than a Democrat or a Republican?
Well, I believe that the school board should be nonpartisan, that's not a place where you need politics getting in the way of things. So I've been unaffiliated for a long time, have always, of course, run as unaffiliated. And so I didn't like the decision that our legislature made to make Polk County School Board become partisan. And so some of that was just stubbornness. I didn't want to pick a party. I wanted to remain unaffiliated.
Oh, you've been on the board for some time.
For about 21 years.
So it would have been a bit odd for you to switch to a partisan banner at this point.
Right.
And did this requirement for what,
660 signatures.
Did that give you any pause for concern?
Well, it did, but I had a lot of people say that they would help me. But when I turned in the first set, and a lot of the signatures were rejected or not approved because everything had to match what's on the records at the Board of Elections office. And so some people have moved and haven't updated their address. So then I got concerned that, am I going to be able to get enough signatures? But here it is, February the 2nd, and I've already gotten the 660 signatures.
That are approved.
That are approved, yes.
Well, congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
I think it's interesting when the partisan race was introduced, I thought that the Republican Party and the Democratic Party would be running full slates for all 3 seats that are open this year on the school board. But Republicans chose not to challenge your seat.
No, they also didn't challenge the seat in Tryon.
Rick Koval, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that were you surprised by that?
To me, that indicates that people are satisfied with the Board of Education and don't want changes.
Which would be consistent with the opposition of the county to the partisan school board concept in the first place. All right, well, I think we've dealt with that then. Let's move on to why you want to stick around. I mean, 20 years is a long time to serve in any position. Not saying that it tires you out, but what do you want to accomplish or keep accomplishing on the board?
Well, first, let me say I'm not the longest serving board member on the board, that there's some others who have been on there longer. But I just want us to maintain the school system that we have. I have a grandson now who will be attending Polk County Schools, and I'd like for him to be part of our excellent system. We have a board that we've always worked well together. We don't always agree, but we have good discussion, and I think everyone feels comfortable to speak their mind about issues because we're not partisan. We don't let politics come into it. And so I would just like to keep that tradition going. And I don't have an agenda. I've had people in the past run against me that weren't happy, with the football program. And so that was, a reason to run. But I just want to try to do what's right for the students in Polk County.
Well, that is the slogan of the board, right?
Right,
yeah.
Right.
What has changed over the last few years that maybe you as a board have had to adjust or come to grips with that maybe wasn't an issue when you first joined 20 years ago?
Well, the Parent Bill of Rights, we didn't consider that, but now we've had to put a lot of things in place. Our legislature has passed laws with dealing with a lot of things that we never thought of 20 years ago. Sex education in the elementary school, for instance.
Well, I can understand why some people would find that an uncomfortable subject, but was there ever any, local concerns raised before it became like a state and national issue? So in other words, do you think Polk County was comfortable with whatever the school board was doing, until like 3-4 years ago when things went a little...
Right, taking out those years. The only really issues we had were merging Tryon City Schools with Polk County Schools. We built the new high school, and then when we merged Tryon Middle School and Polk Central Middle School, there were strong feelings about that.
But those were primarily driven by economics. It just didn't make sense to try to maintain the different schools, right?
Right, and we can offer a lot more at a larger school than at 2 smaller schools.
And I would think most people have come around to understanding the merits of that decision.
Yes.
Right. And do you think the public in general, even with the chaos we had during COVID, do you think the public has a high degree of confidence in the school board?
I think so. I think the elections 2 years ago showed that when all the incumbents did get reelected.
Yeah, and that was after a couple of years of a lot of angry school board meetings.
Yes, it was not pleasant.
How have school boards meetings been over the last, say, 6-8 months?
We're sort of back to normal. Very few people show up. Although we do try to have a student presentation at the beginning of each meeting. So, of course, we have, the parents come to see their students perform and whatever the performance is.
What about one of the issues which I don't know if it was on top of mind for most people, but the challenging of books in the schools? Is there still some of that going on, or is that kind of ebbed?
I think we address that because we have not had anybody come to the school board about that issue. We did make a policy that you had to have a child at that school to challenge a book in the library. So I think that made a difference. We, had a lot of community members who were challenging books.
And those are often books on a list that was nationally distributed. And
right, that's what we understand. It was coming out of some organization.
All right. Well, let's move on then to something that it's like a personal interest of mine, because I think it's affecting schools across the country, and including post-secondary education. What technology is doing to education, and how our schools are handling. We've got smartphones now, which, kids refuse to give up, right?
No, and parents don't want them taken from their students.
Right. Now, I remember when my son went from Saluda to Polk Middle, he was only 12, and we were not really expecting to give him a cell phone, a good iPhone until he was 13. But, he's taking a bus or whatever down to school every day, and we thought it might be a good idea to keep in touch with him. So we gave them to him a year earlier. And sometimes I wonder, did we kind of make the wrong decision about that? And I read an interesting story the other day about a school, I think it was in Florida. They don't ban cell phones, but they ban smartphones. Just so if you want to text your son or your daughter, you want to call them in an emergency, you can, but they can't spend their time on TikTok or Instagram or anything like that. Now, have Polk schools given any thought to controlling the spread of that kind of thing?
We have. Again, parents want to be able to contact their students or their students to contact the parents. So I had not heard of this having a phone that's not a smartphone, but just, the old-fashioned one. So that is certainly something I think that we should consider.
Now, there's going to be a lot of resistance to that, obviously, from the students. But this piece I was reading talked about how after the initial, chaos and opposition from the students, everyone realized actually they're having a lot more fun if they're not looking at their phones every second the teacher isn't looking at them.
We know the phones are addictive. I think they've been designed to be addictive. And I think we're realizing the problems with that, from the suicide rates and the mental health issues. We're seeing so much mental health issues in the schools. That I think a lot of that is attributable to the smartphone.
Or at least excessive use of them.
Yes.
Or compulsive use of them, rather than, it just seems to me that it would not be a bad idea if when the kids came into class, they put their phones in a cubby or something and left them until, class is over.
So I would have no problem with that. I don't know if that would be difficult for teachers to enforce that. Because I know we want teachers to teach, not, police the students. So it's a balance that you have to come to.
You'd have to get some buy-in by the community to this concept, which is why you would have to hold public meetings, I think, canvass the thoughts of the
Yes,
community on this sort of thing. I mean,
absolutely.
this is just something I personally think is interesting. I don't know exactly whether or not it would be warranted, but if I was on the board, I would be thinking about exploring these concepts. A similar issue, artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, it's getting a lot easier for students to crank out readable essays without doing any of the thinking themselves.
It's scary, the AI. I think for in the school system, the key for us is having leadership that understands the technology and how to best use it.
Well, this is the problem. Often it's the young people, like the kids, who are more aware and familiar with these new tools than
Right,
administrators who have got better things to do than play with ChatGPT
right.
all day.
Well, we're trying to stay one step ahead of what the kids are doing. Um, I know they have the programs that I think that can check to see if material's plagiarized. I don't know how accurate those are.
Well, it's like an arms race, I guess. I mean, the programs get better and better at looking or reading as if they aren't produced by artificial intelligence. So it's unfortunate. It seems like this is yet another task we're giving our school staffers, in addition to all the other things that they do, a lot of which are beyond education, right? We're talking,
Exactly.
and how much can we load on them? This notion of policing the content of their essays from a artificial intelligence point of view, it could require hiring people dedicated to this.
Right. Oh, yeah, we expect our teachers to be teachers, nurses, therapists, counselors. We've put a lot on them.
And Polk Schools plays such an important role in the county, not just having a place to go and learn during the day, right? I mean, we've got, as I understand it, Polk Schools has been very successful at supplying free lunches and breakfasts to a large number of other kids in our county,
Yes,
right?
all the elementary schools.
Right. I know that it hasn't every year. It's been a little bit uncertain whether or not we can afford to do that, but you've managed to find the money most years, right?
Yes, we feel very important that's a need for the county, and we want all the schools to be treated equally.
So, and again, this is a function of the community understanding how important the schools are. So, I'm trying to anticipate, because you're running for another 4 years on the board, what are you going to be dealing with? What other things are you going to be going to the community saying, we need your support on this? In other words, get the commissioners to maybe fund something new, get the Polk County Community Foundation to come up with some more money. What's on the horizon?
Well, mental health is a big issue right now, getting enough therapists in all of the schools.
How many do we have now?
I'd have to check with central office. I know it's not enough for the need. It's that, the state is not funding us at the level that we would like. But that has been a significant issue, the increase in students who have anxiety or, have to have the IEPs, the individual education plans.
And you think that's becoming a greater and greater problem?
Yes, every year.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think, as we said, the smartphones, they're looking at these videos and comparing themselves to other people, and it's
Lowering their self-esteem.
right, lowering self-esteem and causing anxiety because maybe they don't meet the expectations, or you're worried about your body not being like other people's. Or
So, let me just be clear, these are issues that are, go back since the beginning of time. It's just that the smartphones are amplifying them to the point where they're becoming a serious problem in the schools.
Yes, exasperating the issues.
And as a school board, what will be your responsibility in terms of responding to that?
Well, I think recognizing it first and then trying to have the appropriate personnel in place for the students that need help.
So again, you're talking about maybe hiring some more counselors
Yes.
and dedicated therapists, or I don't know what the term is, people with a background in psychiatry.
Right, that know how to best deal with these situations.
Yeah, I think that, you and I are probably a similar age. We did not grow up worrying that much about the social atmosphere at schools. There were problems always, but it seems that there is a certain level of anxiety among younger kids today that didn't used to exist.
Yes. I know. I think all of my nieces are on some type of anxiety medication, that it's just so common. And I had one of my nieces say, you can't even say to anybody, I have anxiety, because then it becomes a competition. My anxiety is worse than your anxiety, which when I was growing up, I don't think we ever thought about that.
I don't think the word anxiety was part of my vocabulary when I was in school. Okay, well, to wrap up then, you're probably consumed as a school board member with issues that were not on the table 20 years ago. Like when you first ran for school board, what did you assume would your duties involve?
Well, I don't even know if I thought about that. I was appointed initially. The school board member from White Oak resigned, and I had never considered it. I had always volunteered at the schools and, was active in the PTA. So I was asked what I consider. I thought, well, okay.
I'm guessing that back then, school boards, and Polk Schools being no exception, their job was to find a superintendent and to sort of oversee, to make sure the superintendent's doing what you wanted them to do, and make sure the budgets met all the legislative requirements. So, in other words, not a lot of deep philosophical, sociological debates over the very nature of the school.
No, like you say, our most important job is to hire the superintendent. I think that's job one. Then we do set the policies for the district, which a lot of that is mandated by the state, that we don't have any choice about a lot of that. And we want to be fiscally responsible. And, of course, we want to look at our student achievement and make sure that continues to go up.
Yeah, how's Polk Schools doing? I mean, every school had a problem during COVID where test scores went down, but I think they're back on the way up again, aren't they?
I have a graph that shows Polk County with Rutherford and Buncombe County, and you can see we're way up here. This was the COVID years when everybody went down. But we're, ahead of surrounding school districts.
Well, what was Polk just rated the other day? It was like second again in the state?
Yes, in student achievement.
Right.
Yeah.
So it looks from that graph, and maybe I could post a link to that in the show notes for this episode. But again, it looks like Polk has been doing better than better than the rest, and it is recovering at the same rate as everybody else. So we're still better than, than the rest.
We're not back to the pre-COVID.
But we're going the right direction.
But we're headed in the right direction.
All right. Well, I can see then why it makes sense that there's not a lot of people demanding change on the school board. But there will be you'll be facing one Democratic challenger, and Rob Parsons will be facing one as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he will. And I know we know we're going to have some leadership change.
Dave Sherping just moved over to take over.
Yeah, the principalship at Tryon.
Okay.
We started the year with Manine, Miss Manine resigned due to health reasons, and we got a replacement in, and then he had to resign for health reasons. So Dave Sherping, who's always worn a lot of hats for Polk County
He
Schools,
seems to have done just about everything, except for superintendent.
Yep, I think he's done about everything else, and now he has agreed to step in and take over the principalship at Trine Elementary till the end of the year.
So you need to replace him?
So we will be looking, yes, for a new principal for next year.
Okay. But nobody's thinking about replacing the superintendent just now, are we?
Oh, no. But, I mean, we know he'll retire eventually. And I think there's might be some other people at central office that are close to retirement.
So you might have some work cut out for you at finding a good replacement to keep that record going.
Right, because that's key, is getting the right people in the right position.
All right, then. Well, good luck in November, because it looks like we will see your name on the ballot.
Yes, thank you very much. I had tremendous support in getting signatures on the petition, and I just appreciate everyone who helped with that.
All right. Well, thanks for talking to me today.
Well, thank you very much.
That's it for this episode. I'll be returning to the subject of school board elections in the fall, when I hope to talk with the other 3 candidates who will be asking for your vote in November. In the weeks ahead, I'm going to do my best to interview all 4 candidates in the Republican primary for the 3 open county commission seats. Life goes on outside of politics, of course, so if you have any thoughts on whom I should be talking with and about what, you can email jamesh@polklore.com. Thanks for listening.